Hello, you're listening to From McClay to Zalma. I'm your host, Karen Miller. This podcast is about the adventures and travels of two women from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, who work for the U.S. Army at Zama, Japan. Their stories are told through hundreds of letters written home.
Episode 11, Strike, letters 24 to 26. As I'm running this episode, I'm listening to a stash of old 45s that I just rediscovered. They belong to my mom and dad. My favorites are The Green Door, a 1956 number one hit for Jim Lowe, and Bill Haley and his Comets singing Shake, Rattle, and Roll, which came out in 1960. This really helps me picture all the dancing that the girls are doing in Japan. As I go through the records, there are well over 100, I'll be on the lookout for songs that were a hit in the summer of 1953. After indulging my curiosity about the bride, Gloria, I decided to dive into Vi Domenecchi's life a little bit. I discovered that although Peg spelled her name like it was Italian or Polish, she was Russian, and Peg did not spell her name correctly, so that took a little bit. The 1930 census showed her living in South River, New Jersey, with her parents who only spoke Russian and were born in Russia. Vi gets mentioned a lot in the letters and was clearly a close friend of the Harnishes. Turns out she did, in fact, marry an officer. Her husband was a Korean and Vietnam vet and was named Thomas. I learned that she traveled to Europe a few times in the 1960s and eventually wound up living in my current home state of North Carolina. Vi, her name was Viola Victoria, is buried with her husband in the New Bern National Cemetery. And I can see why she went by Vi instead of Viola. She passed away in 2007 and was 1 year older than Peg. After the last episode, I also realized why I don't remember a time when I didn't know how to use chopsticks. Peg and Jim went on a date and were embarrassed by their inability to use chopsticks. And they committed the common but huge faux pas of shoveling, which is really quite rude, I was always taught. I imagine this led to an unusual family ritual that I never really understood the origin of. Any new spouse or partner in the family was taken to a Japanese restaurant at some point and assessed on their chopstick skills, which most Americans don't have. It usually was just a demonstration of how well they handled embarrassment as they sat with shock watching a table full of surprisingly competent chopstick users. In an interesting case of what goes around comes around, I harvested my first hydroponic lettuce for a BLT sandwich today. But Peg comments that the hydroponic fruit they're getting tastes different than what she's used to. I would imagine so. Hydroponic gardening actually began in 1946 in Japan, a trend that many of us are just getting into in 2024. I'm also loving always having fresh lettuce, and I don't have to worry about the bunnies eating it. Peg mentions her millennium-lined coat that she once sent for winter, and that was also not easy to find out about. It took me a little bit. It's what I would call a quilted lining in a coat. So we're now ready for letter 24 from Peg. It was written August 18th, 1953. Dear Mother and Daddy, hot news right off the press. Last night, our 10% differential was officially taken away from us. When we got here, the old-timers said we sure were getting here at the wrong time, but because they had heard rumors that the 10% was going off. Of course, this place is full of rumors of all sorts, and some people told us not to pay any attention to that rumor. Well, we found out differently. When the differential was cut last time, 1948 or 49, I think, the DACs were given the choice of going home at any time with the government paying the way. Now we have to stay the full 2 years to get our way paid, the same understanding that we started with. It seems that previously the differential was included in the base pay, and when they cut out the differential, it made a cut in the base pay, so they had to equalize the situation by offering to pay the way home whenever desired. Now our differential is over and above our base pay, so evidently there is no comeback to object to having it cut out. Some of the girls are most unhappy because they came over with the express purpose of saving money. And to make things even rosier, prices of food are going up. Understand we won't be starving or scraping to make ends meet. Instead of the $100 a month I had planned to save, I am allotting $70 a month. I'll still be able to take trips and have a good time, but it just burns me and everyone else. Mrs. Davis said that she read in her stateside newspaper that Congress allotted themselves an additional $10,000 a year and said they couldn't very well allot themselves an increase without doing the same for the military and State Department. So maybe we'll get a raise. Anyhow, don't worry about it, because we're far from being poor. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, I'm still making out a heck of a lot better than I did back home. But it just makes me mad when I think that they got us over here for 10% additional, and just like that, they can take it away. However, that's the government. Talking about my allotment, Vi filled out my forms for me last night. She works in payroll, and I'm having $70 a month sent to the Camp Curtin Trust Company to my checking account. It won't go into effect until October 1st, so it will be a few weeks after that they get the money. It wouldn't be a bad idea if you would check with the bank sometime in October to see if the allotment is coming through okay. And please don't hesitate to write yourself a check for that $19.50 or however much it was. I'm quite sure my allotment will cover my insurances and any other expenses I may have. But please be sure to let me know if it won't. About my coats. You might as well send both of them, providing that we didn't decide to give away the brown coat. They sure as the dickens won't do me much good back home, and even though I may not have occasion to wear my fur coat very much, at least I'll have it in case I want it. Mother, don't go to too much trouble to fix the lining. If the weather doesn't get any colder than it has in the past years, Vi said she thinks my millium lining coat will serve the purpose all winter. So now I won't change my mind any more. Just send them and I'll wear them sometime. None of the colonels were in today, and I'm very glad. The weather over here has been almost unbearable. I know it gets hot back home, but you know me and hot weather. I thrive on it. However, this is different. I perspire quite a lot. I even get the back of my dress wet, which is most unusual for me. Today it's cloudy and rainy, so we're getting a little relief. I'll be very glad to see fall come this year, and that's the first time I've ever wished for that. Last night, Vi and I went to the movies here at Zama. We got home about 8:30 and griped with Jeanette about the 10% for a while. Then the lights went out. All the lights in the camp were out for about 5 minutes. Then they came back on, and we thought everything was okay. Well, what fun. About every 10 minutes they went out. One time I thought, well, they're on for good now, so I'll go take my shower. Yes, you guessed it. I took my shower in the dark. One of the girls gave me a candle, so I showed a few people the way home. I finally got to bed about midnight, so you can see why I'm glad the big boys aren't here today. I'm just a wee bit pooped. Daddy, here's some yen. Now, you and Mother can go out on the town tonight. It looks like pretty much to see that $100 or that number 100 on it, but just remember it's only about 28 cents. The other ones are 1 yen, which is nothing, just something to make up a bill if the bill's for an uneven amount. That's okay about the shoes. Thanks for trying, though. Bern got 2 letters yesterday, one from Nancy and one from Elva. Was she ever pleased? I'm trespassing on Bern's territory now. You ask her these questions, but I'll answer them once and she can answer them again. I write to you more often than she does, but I know she feels absolutely inspired to write again now that she's gotten some letters. We have gotten apples, plums, and peaches. They are most wonderful to look at, but they taste like perfume or else they don't have any taste at all. We had some very good peaches right after we got here, but we haven't had any really good ones since. We buy our fruit from places that sell fruits and vegetables grown on hydroponic farms. That is, farms that don't use the common method of fertilizing. I don't know whether it's the chemically treated soil or the brand of fruit that they grow, but it just doesn't taste like fruit back home. John, thanks for suggestions as to what to buy for you. You are sure you wouldn't be interested in a beautiful sterling silver whiskey flask? I've seen some beautiful ones. You doll, we know you don't have any vices, but you could cultivate a few so that we would know what to send you. You'd have the most beautiful bar in Harrisburg. Today, I wanted to put on my red and black checked dress with the black buttons. One of the buttons came off, and I noticed that the button was broken, so that the thread wouldn't hold it on. You know what I mean, Mother. I left the button on the bureau for Yamanuchi to sew it on when she came back from breakfast. I saw when I came back from breakfast, I saw that she had tried, but the thread kept slipping out. Well, she told me her troubles in Japanese, and I told her to try and fix it as best she could in English. And then we realized that neither one of us understood the other one. So I motioned for her to get her buddy, who acts as our interpreter. Her buddy told her to take a hot iron and try to melt the broken pieces together, something I would never have thought of. So they were chattering away for a fair time, and I said, "Let me in on it. What are you talking about?" The interpreter told me all this, so we all had a good laugh, and then I went to work. It's really surprising how much we can understand each other with sign language. We can usually manage to understand one or two words of their English, and then we can get the rest of what they're trying to say by using common sense. It's not too difficult. Well, for not having much news, I think I did pretty well. I'd sure as the Dickens like to know what happened to all my friends that said they'd write. I got a note the other day from Shirley and Dick Garland, so I wrote them a big, fat, juicy letter. I usually answer all the letters the same day I get them, but darned if I'm writing any more if they don't answer my letters. I'm speaking in particular about Pete and Avis and Louise and Stucky. P.S. Is Blondie okay? You haven't said anything about her lately. Love and kisses, Peg. Letter 25 from Bern, written August 19th, 1953. Dear folks, one of the disadvantages to living in quarters of this type is the paper-thin walls. Somewhere, quite far down the hall, a radio is blaring, and since it is too hot to shut the door to my room, this proves very distracting. If this letter sounds disjointed, blame it on the radio. Last night, I ate in an honest-to-goodness home. My goodness, did it ever feel good. One of the girls in the building where I work is married to a Navy fireman and lives in the housing area at Samagahara. It has been extremely hot for 2 days, so she invited me to go swimming with her and her husband. We ate potato salad, fried chicken, and homemade chocolate cake, and then we went swimming in a huge Olympic-built pool that was only 4.5 feet to 5 feet deep. This pool must have been designed with me in mind. I could swim all over the pool and still touch the bottom whenever I got tired. It was wonderful. Afterwards, we went back to the Joneses' home and ate watermelon, a delightful way to get cooled off, and I came back and slept like a top. That's really an inane expression, isn't it? How the heck does a top sleep? This green sheet of paper contains just a couple of stories which I copied from the Japan Travel News pamphlet. It might give you some ideas of the things that are of interest to people over here. In one of your letters, Helen, you mentioned looking at the sky and thinking that it is the same and not really so far away. You be sure to look for the moon on September 22nd, and you can be sure that we'll be stargazing too. I'm curious to see if the Japanese who live around here will observe this festival. The last article on the green sheet tells you about it. Before I forget, I will talk about some practical things. The money orders are in different names in case you both had errands at the post office. You could each take care of one. So the bank balance you quoted, Daddy, that much is left over after paying my 2 insurances, which I know were due in July. Helen, just send my brown winter coat. I hate taking a chance on mildew or moss getting into my good coat. There is a very short cold season, and it doesn't usually arrive until January or February. I'm sure my gabardine suit and spring coat will be adequate until then. Here are the answers to your requests. DAC means Department of Army Civilians. We are working for the Army, but we are not in the military. Peg says she sent Dad his yen. I agree with the gal who says she can't get used to the idea that it is really money. It's just a piece of paper to be passed around as far as I'm concerned. One could go broke that way, huh? I've inquired at the PX for a map of Japan. No luck. If I go to Tokyo shopping this weekend, I'll try there. You will notice that I'm answering questions you ask, so I am now getting mail. Your letters were postmarked August 5th and August 9th, and I received them on the 17th. Daddy, thanks for those suggestions on what to get you. Christmas is coming, you know, and I could just picture us scouring the shops of Yokohama and Tokyo for something for you. You suggest that we schedule our letters. That won't work. With your impulsive red-headed daughter, to think is to act. She says she has to write as soon as something happens, or she does something interesting, or else too many impressions would crowd in on her and she would bust. Then I think, well, if I wait too long, she will tell you all the news. So there you are. If there is a gap, don't worry. We couldn't be better taken care of anywhere. Your letter with the menus actually made my mouth water. Food over here is just something to eat because of necessity. The fruit is not at all good. I've had apples, peaches, plums, but something has been lacking in the flavor of all of them. Perhaps it has something to do with the fact that the fruit must be sprayed or treated before we can eat it. In case you don't know, let me tell you why. The Japanese have no bathrooms. They urinate on the streets, in the fields, anywhere. When they gotta go, they gotta go. However, for real BMs, that's a different story. The city dwellers are carefully collect their waste matter in wooden buckets. Very early in the morning, a wagon drawn by oxen, or occasionally by a man himself, makes the round and collects these buckets in his cart. He hauls them out into the country and sells them to the farmers for fertilizer. If you think we have good old country odor in America, you ought to be here. One of my unforgettable souvenirs of Japan will be the thought of the infamous honey wagon. Ugh. We were scheduled to have another strike, but I was talking to the Japan Labor Office, and they were very hopeful that it would be negotiated and avoided. I had a ringside seat at the last one. My room faces the main entrance to the camp. Of course, they were all milling around the entrance and waving red flags and chanting and listening to speeches. A pine tree in front of my window gives me some privacy, but I can still hear and see very well. It was quite exciting. Sometimes I think we Americans are rather stupid. We taught them to strike and now we suffer. This letter doesn't have much Japanese customs or flavor to tell, but since it's been so hot, I've been content to stay out here in the country, so I don't have much to report. Gomen nasai, pardon me. I will try to do better next time. Much love, sayonara, Vern. Number 26, Peg. From the 23rd of August, 1953, Camp Zama. Dear Mother and Daddy, Vern, Vi, and I just had the nicest breakfast. I was the hostess today. We had donuts, tea, and coffee, and canned fruit. We used Vern's and my Sprinter pots to heat the water for tea and coffee. It was the first time we used them, and they worked just fine. They're so cute, and I hope I can find one to send to you. We're going to send one to Duff, too, to give him some idea of a Japanese ceramic product. Maybe he'll get an American patent on it because it's really very clever. Yesterday, the billet lady told me that our rooms were inspected and that a plug on my radio was defective. I took the radio to the repair shop here at Zama and discovered some shops that I didn't even know were here. More fun. I'd love to tell you what I bought, but we're starting to do our Christmas shopping, so I won't be telling you some things from now on. Ain't you just busting with excitement? I showed Vern this morning what I bought yesterday because I didn't get a chance yesterday, and we both would just love to see you open your packages on Christmas. Vern, Jeanette, and I went shopping in Yokohama yesterday afternoon. I bought some cups and dishes, and we used them this morning. We bought more things that I can't tell you about. Haha. I also priced organs. They cost 19,000 yen plus 1,000 for the stool. So I'm going Wednesday night. We get paid on Wednesday, and buy one. I can hardly wait. Last night we went to the 45 and had another wonderful time. And for the first time in my life, I had dances promised ahead of time. Imagine. On Friday night, BJ and I decided to investigate some other clubs. So we went to the NCP club down at the Zama Hospital. There were all the way of 4 people there besides us, so it was a wasted evening. The 45 looks better all the time. Last night we danced with some fellows from Pennsylvania, Chester, Philadelphia, and Allentown. So we all enjoyed talking about home. But the one guy insisted on calling me Irish, can you imagine? And me being such a Dutchman. I told you I had such a good time in Tokyo last weekend with Jim. Well, he called me Monday, and we talked for a while, and then he said he'd call on Tuesday. Well, he didn't call. That's the last I heard from him. I just don't understand men. But they're very independent over here, so I guess I'll just forget about him. He's about the nicest fellow I've met, though. I also told you about the button on my dress. The enclosed note is the note that Yamanouchi got her buddy to write to me. Isn't it cute? How about that? Please forgive me, sir. There are a lot of unhappy DACs over here. Everyone's a little bitter about the 10% deal. Jeanette and I are seriously considering going to Korea. Now, don't have a fit. It's not as bad as it sounds. Korea is a 2-point area, which means that each month counts as 2 months, and we would only have to stay 1 year in order to have enough time to get our way home paid. And the best part is they're paying a 25% differential. In order to change jobs, we have to get a letter of availability from our supervisor. I asked Colonel Van Tool if he would give me one, and he said he didn't see why I would want to go. But when I told him about the 25% and the 2-point area, he said he didn't blame me. So Jay and I are going to find out more about it this week. We talked to other girls who are thinking about going too. Bern doesn't share our enthusiasm, but she said she didn't care if I went. Everyone says that Korea is dirty and the poverty of the people just about breaks your heart, but other than that, it isn't too bad. Colonel Van Tool came back from a visit to Korea on Friday, so I had a pretty interesting day. For the most part, though, it's still boring. I've been helping one of the girls with her work, cutting stencils and typing copy for the monthly medical bulletin. But it's a crime that I get paid as a 4 for the little bit of work I do. I guess I'm just being greedy when I want to go to Korea to get that 25%. But someone is going to get it, and it might as well be me. Talking about our breakfast this morning, I washed dishes for the first time since the 21st of June. Mother, you remember those paper cloths that you told me to take along, the ones I got at the paper demonstration? I used them, and they're just fine. Friday, the temperature was 101 degrees, a record for Japan. And believe me, it was hot. It rained a little last night, so today it's very pleasant. The heat over here is really something. Like I said before, this is the first time I'll be glad to see winter. Still haven't gotten your boxes. Last evening we discovered a shop that sells darling pillows for only 300 yen a piece. So as soon as we get the spreads, we're going to get those pillows. When I get my room fixed up with my organ and stuff, I think I'll have a photographer take pictures so you can see what it looks like. Tell everyone I said hi and to write, love Peg. In parentheses, it says Irish. The note that was written to Peg will be posted on the podcast website, along with the articles that Bern was talking about. It's pretty funny that her maid calls her Sir. I think my favorite thing about these letters is that Bern's comment about Peg. Boy, what she thought, she said. It came right out of her mouth, and I've been accused of that too. And when she decided to do something, she did it. Their brother, Duff, that she's speaking about, was a ceramic engineer. Fascinating man, and one of the few people of his generation that my husband got to meet, and he just loves to talk about Uncle Duff and how cool he was. He was just a very enthusiastic man and great fun to talk to. Very, very intelligent and interesting. As a mom, I can imagine this talk of moving to Korea for a bit more money is going over like a lead weight with Helen and John. I bet Bern said go ahead because she was hoping Peg wouldn't take her up on it. Really, Peg, this isn't adventurous enough for you? Okay, well, I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and if you are, please subscribe in Spotify, and you can also join the podcast for free in Patreon. This will help my listeners find my podcast more easily. You can access the show's website at www.fromaclaytozama.com for pictures and episodes and additional information that was included in the letters. In the next episode, number 12, Korea No, you will hear letters 27 to 29. I hope you have a great week.